Buenas noches, estimados espectadores y estudiantes. Felicitarlos por llegar hasta el día de hoy. A todos los que están conectados en este momento, los que se van a conectar, muchas gracias. Nuevamente es un gusto para nosotros estar aquí. Hoy damos finalización a nuestra semana del Social English y tenemos una invitada muy especial. Ella está desde Auckland, Nueva Zelanda. Tiene mucha información que darnos. Ella tiene una hoja de vida bien completa, bien bonita, donde también maneja un segundo idioma. Para ella su segundo idioma es el español, como para nosotros es el inglés. Entonces tiene mucho que contarnos. Si ustedes quieren hacer preguntas, no olviden poner en el chatbot sus preguntas, ya sea de su presentación que va a ser el día de hoy, o también de su experiencia acerca del aprendizaje de un segundo idioma, como ella ha logrado estar en la posición que está ahora, que maneja sus dos idiomas muy bien. Entonces, bienvenidos. Sin más preámbulos, vamos a darle paso a Ana Kempkers. Ella tiene entonces hoy How to Sound Like a Native Speaker. ¿Cómo hacemos para sonar más como americanos, también como British, como se habla en su país, en Nueva Zelanda? ¿Qué tipsitos podemos tener para poder hablar un poco más fluido? No solamente para hablar como con el acento especial de algún país, sino que podemos hacer para hablar mejor en inglés. Entonces, Ana, bienvenida, y acá le dejo a todos los chicos que están atentos a toda la información que tienes para darles.
Muchas gracias. Bueno, voy a compartir. Ok.
Ellos te van a pedir que hables en inglés, ya sabemos, entonces ellos saben hablar inglés y van a poder entenderte. Esperemos que sí.
Perfect. Okay, so first thing, I'm from New Zealand, so that means that I have probably a very different accent to what you're used to hearing. The New Zealand accent is closer to the British accent than the American accent. So we don't pronounce the R's at the end of a word, for example, and just some of our sounds are different. But my presentation is about English in general, not so much specific to any country, just how to sound like a native speaker of English in general. So first thing, I think the most important thing that everyone needs to know is that the best way to sound like a native speaker is to speak as much as possible and listen to as much as possible. So you should be watching TV shows on Netflix in English with English subtitles if you need them. Listening to English songs totally helps you learn pronunciation because our brains are quite good at remembering songs and their lyrics, and all of those kinds of things. If you get the wonderful opportunity to live in an English-speaking country, then that is 100% the best way to start sounding like a native speaker. So I lived in Colombia for 4 years, and that's where I learned to speak Spanish like a native Spanish speaker, and it's definitely the quickest, easiest way to sound like a native speaker. But of course, if you don't have that opportunity, then try and find English speakers to talk to, watch Netflix, listen to songs, and just get as much English in your ears as possible. So today, I hope we can see me. Okay, I'm gonna hide, yeah. So today's topics are, we're going to cover 3 topics. The first one is common mistakes for Spanish speakers. So these are things that I have picked up basically from my experience teaching English in Colombia. Obviously, different languages have different problems in English. For example, German speakers will find different things difficult in English to Spanish speakers, for example. So we're going to focus on that. We're going to then focus on connected speech and something very strange called the schwa. Then we're going to have 10 tips for sounding more natural in English. So first up, common mistakes for Spanish speakers. So the first one, mispronunciation of letters. This is where we add an E before a st or a sp word. This is very common because in Spanish, you wouldn't have a st word or a sp word without an E in the front. For example, español, estricto, estructura, all of those kinds of things. So in English, when we're saying these words, we do not put a secret imaginary E in the front. Strict, style, strong, Spanish, spider. Lots of times the E creeps in. We want to try and not do that. Number 2, pronouncing a Y, so a Y sound, as a J. So commonly Spanish speakers will make the J sound for a Y because that's how you would pronounce the Y in Spanish. So these ones are incorrect, would be jeers, yes, jello. We don't want to do that. We want to say years, yes, yellow. Your tongue needs to go on the inside of your teeth to pronounce this sound. So the both sides of the tongue, you probably can't see that, but we need to have both sides of the tongue touching. J, sorry, yeah. If we do a j, then more of the tongue touches the roof of the mouth. So we want to avoid that. Number 3, pronouncing a j as a h. So these words, for example, because in Spanish, a J is pronounced H. In English, it's J. So we have jam, jealous, jog, not ham, Hallis, hog. Those don't make sense. Number 4, pronouncing V as B. So again, in Spanish, the V and the B are the same sound. So it's common for Spanish speakers to pronounce English V words with a B. So berry, bag, ban. We don't want to do that. It needs to be a V. So if you're listening to me and you can understand me, try the B sound and feel here, B, 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 and then V, V, V. So for the V, our teeth need to touch our bottom lip. V, 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 and it should vibrate in here. So the B, B, B does not vibrate. The V does. Very, vague, van. Number 5, mispronouncing the English H, so the H sound. So lots of Spanish speakers compensate it, so they replace it with a H sound. Hello, homework, help. We need to try not to do that. The H is just like it's a breath. H, H. Try it with me. H, hello, homework, help. So it's just a breath. We're not moving anything in here. H, H, H. The tongue isn't touching anywhere. It's just a breath. Hello, homework, help. Number 6, th. So this sound, I get it. It's very difficult for Spanish speakers because it doesn't exist unless you're from Spain. So the th, I'm sure you've practiced it many times before, that we need to make sure the tongue is between the teeth. Th, 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 th. Often, because it's a difficult sound that Spanish speakers aren't used to making, the sound will turn into a t or a d. So this, that, tink, that kind of thing. So we want to make sure we're very careful with the v sound. This, that, think, through, author. It just comes with practice. You just need to say the words over and over and over again. Okay, the z becomes s. So in Spanish, these two sounds are the same. There's not really a difference between the z and the s. So often Spanish speakers will pronounce them as if they're the s sound. For example, husband, reason, cousin. I hope you can hear why that's not correct. So these words make a z sound. Husband, reason, cousin. So we need to be careful with those ones as well. Oops. Number 8, M at the end of words becomes N. In Spanish, the M sound never appears at the end of words. So Spanish speakers will often pronounce it with an N instead. So that basically just makes it confusing. If you're speaking English to someone and there should be an M at the end of the word and you say it with an N, it could be a completely different word and they won't understand you. So we need to be very careful that the M is an M. So we need to close our mouths at the end of it. Obviously the has a closed mouth and doesn't. So we're making sure that we close our mouth at the end of these words. Game, blame, mum, gum. Number 9, the Spanish R. So this one is obviously very different to Spanish. We have the R or the R in Spanish. So another thing, we just need to be very aware of ourselves when we're doing it. So we don't want to say road, homework, ready. We want to say road. So the R, the tongue is halfway back in the mouth and we're not tapping it or anything. It's a R, road, homework, ready, read. So in English, the tongue should only touch the sides of the mouth in the back. R. In Spanish, of course, the tip of the tongue touches the roof of the mouth and beats off it, which is why we have the vibrating R. Okay, so common mistakes part 2, direct translations. So these are things that will make us sound more native if we can say them properly. So I have some examples in Spanish, their literal translation, which is an easy mistake to make, and their correct translation. So we have Spanish, la gente en Nueva Zelanda es muy amable. The people of New Zealand is very kind. The problem here is that people in English is plural. So we need to make sure that we're saying the people of New Zealand are very kind. Tengo hambre. I have hunger. No, I am hungry. So that's the same thing with tengo sed, tengo calor, tengo frío, tengo sueño. All of those ones, we do not use the word I have, we use the word I am. Perdí el bus. Literally, I lost the bus, but we want to say I missed the bus. ¿Me prestas un lapicero? Can you borrow me a pen? That one I hear all the time. So in English, we have 2 different words. So to borrow is the action that you do. So you are borrowing the pen and the person is lending it to you. So we have 2 words for the verb prestar. So can you lend me a pen? So if they're lending it to you, or can I borrow a pen? But we do not say, can you borrow me a pen? Estoy de acuerdo. I am agree. Nope, I agree. ¿Qué pasa? What happened? Also another really common one. We just wouldn't say that. So we want to say, what's wrong? Or what's up? Instead, sounds more natural. Pasa lo mismo en Nueva Zelanda. Literally would be, happens the same in New Zealand. Not something we would say. So you say, the same thing happens in New Zealand. Somos 5. So you go to a restaurant, for example. Go to a restaurant. And you want a table and they ask you, how many people are you? And you'd say, somos 5. We are 5. Nope, we want to say there are 5 of us. Escúchame. Listen me. That's what it would be literally. That's not what it is. In reality, listen to me. Same thing with mírame. I can't think of any other examples, but listen to me, look at me. We can't just say listen me, look me, etc. ¿Cómo es? To describe someone, right? Tengo un, I don't know, I have a new friend. ¿Cómo es? Es amable, es bonito, lo que sea. How is he is not how we would translate that. We'd say how, what is he like? And then, al fin, no tengo que ir a la oficina. So another really common one. Lots of Spanish speakers will say, finally, I don't have to go to the office. But in reality, we'd say, turns out I don't have to go to the office, or I don't have to go to the office after all. So those are some useful things for you to take note of for how to sound more native. Things to be careful with, part 3. So these are other very common mistakes, his and her. So this is confusing for many Spanish speakers because in Spanish there's just one word, su. So su casa could be her house or his house. So Spanish speakers aren't used to having to distinguish between these. So it's very, very normal to get this messed up, but we need to be careful to say his for the masculine su and her for the feminine su. Make and do, another common one, because in Spanish there's one word, hacer. So generally in English, make is to create or construct something. So like make a cake, make the bed, make dinner, yeah, and then do is for general activities. So I'm going to do my homework. I'm going to do some exercise, those kinds of things. Watch, see, look at. So in Spanish, we have ver and mirar. So watch is when we watch something for a period of time and it's moving or changing. For example, watch TV, watch a movie, watch a football game. See is when we notice something using our eyes. So we didn't mean to look at it, but we just see it. I saw, of course, past tense see, I saw a beautiful bird flying by. And look at is when we direct our eyes in the direction of something and pay attention to it. So something that we want to do. Maybe we say, oh my goodness, look at that dog. Or, I just looked at this weird thing, like that. Then we have this, these, and that, those. So in English, normally adjectives don't have plural forms. So of course in Spanish we'd say los vestidos amarillos. So it's plural, vestidos. We need to match the adjective, amarillos, to make it plural. In English, we don't say that. You just say the yellow dresses. We don't need to say the yellows dresses. But these particular words do have plurals. So that is why it's confusing. So it's another thing that we need to remember to use them. So this is one thing that's close. These, many things that are close. That, one thing far away. And those, many things far away. Next thing, connected speech and the schwa. So I think when I was thinking about planning this webinar, I was thinking it is so hard to sound native in English. It's so hard. And I think it's because of this topic, connected speech and the schwa. I'll tell you soon what the schwa is. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't. But connected speech is something that's very, very particular to English. And it's because English is a very rhythmic and stressed language. So it means that a lot of meaning is conveyed through which words we stress and which words we kind of push together. And English has a lot of words that push together, which Spanish does not. Spanish, you can see a word that you've never seen before and you know how it's pronounced and you will say each word completely. Whereas in English, certain words with certain things, they'll get put together and they make new sounds. So that's why English is so difficult to sound like a native in. So we're going to look at lots of different parts of connected speech. So yeah, connected speech basically means how we put words together when we're speaking, rather than, it's not about writing at all. It's about realistic native English and what native English speakers do typically. So the first one, these are all technical terms for it. First one's called geminates. It's kind of like gemelos. When a word ends in a consonant, so just check that we know. Vowels are A, E, I, O, U, and consonants are everything else. So when a word ends in a consonant and the next word begins with the same one, we merge, so we smush the two words together. Okay, so let's have this word, black coffee, for example. They both have the same sound at the end, black coffee. So it's the k, k. We would not say black coffee. We'd say black coffee, black coffee. We don't distinguish between the two words. Same thing, we wouldn't say this school. We'd say this school. Okay, we wouldn't say, I have to go to this school tomorrow. We'd say, I have to go to this school tomorrow. So the sound is a little bit longer, this school. Good day. Have a good day. Doesn't sound natural. Have a good day. Good day. Cake cutter. Cake cutter. Cake cutter. Cake cutter. So these are words that smush together because the sound at the end of them, so cake cutter, the k, k, are the same, so they smush together. Same rule applies to words that end with T and D. So this one, we wouldn't say, what do you do? We'd say, what do you do? What do you do? Same thing, next door. Not next door. It would be too difficult for our mouths to say that. Next door. I live next door. Next thing, linking. When a word ends in a consonant and the next word begins with a vowel, we roll the consonant into the vowel and separate the syllable before it. Okay, so here we have the T and the A, both times. So not at all, not at all. Not at all. I've got another bag. So we're going to put got and another together. I've got another bag. Got another bag. So we've got the gotta. Okay, so we have consonant and a vowel. Roll a consonant into the vowel. So another becomes to another. And we separate the syllable before it. I've got another bag. Mum and dad. Mum and dad, mum and dad. There's a dog on the sofa, okay? There's a dog on the sofa. There's a dog on the sofa. A dog on the sofa. Big elephant, big elephant, big elephant. Number 3, elision. So often between two vowels, so remembering that vowels are A, E, I, O, U, the T and D sounds the same if the syllable is unstressed. So hopefully we know about stress. So between two vowels, so if it's in between the two vowels, T and D sound the same. So they have the same sound. It's like a D kind of sound. Unstressed means, so if we have this word writing, yeah, writing, so we've got the first syllable, so we have two syllables, writing, and the ri is stressed, writing. Okay, so writing. The next one, riding, president. So listening for the T's and the D's, I'll say them and you'll hear that they all sound the same in natural speech. Riding, president, hotter, wedding, wetting, that orange, most common, a lot of. Okay, so that kind of a sound somewhere in between the T and the D. This particular thing is stronger in American English, okay? So Americans will do this more than British speakers would do. A British speaker might, for some of them, say writing, yeah, rather than writing. But definitely Americans would say writing or writing. Intrusion. So this is something that intrudes. When a word ends in a vowel and the next word starts with a vowel, an extra letter sneaks in. Okay, so here's some examples. This one's very interesting. It's interesting because even when I speak to other native speakers and I tell them, do you know that we add in these extra strange sounds? They're like, oh yeah, weird. So we don't even know we do it. If we have these two words, he asked, listen to this in a sentence. Yesterday I was with my brother and he asked me if I'd like to get a coffee. He asked. So I'm not saying he asked me, I'm saying he asked. Secret Y goes in there. Same with she answered. She answered. She answered the phone. 3 apples. I ate 3 apples for lunch. 3 apples. Do it. Do it. Go out. Oh, I'm just going to go out. Okay, so we've got a secret W going in there. I'm going to put my shoe on. I need to put my shoe on. Assimilation. So this one is when 2 sounds blend together, forming a new sound. So this often happens with T and J and with D and J. So as in the Y sound. So don't you. So when we have the T and the J sound, don't you. Don't you. Won't you. Meet you. Did you? Would you? Would you like to grab a coffee? Did you go to the party last Friday? It was really nice to meet you. Won't you come and have coffee with me? Don't you think the homework was very difficult? Okay, so in natural speech, that's what we do. All right, this mysterious schwa. So this is the schwa. I don't know if anyone knows about phonetics. I love phonetics. It's about basically spelling out how to sound things. So how words sound. So this is the symbol for the schwa. So when we're writing phonetically, this is the symbol. The schwa is, I think I have it here, yes. So the schwa is the most common sound in English. And it's a super strange one because it doesn't have one way to be spelled. The schwa can be an A, E, I, O, or U. The sound is a. So I'd love everyone to repeat a. It's a very simple sound to make, and it's the most common one in English. And I think lots of people don't realize that the schwa exists, which is why sometimes English for second language learners can sound quite forced. So it's the sound a vowel makes, so A, E, I, O, U, in an unaccented, unstressed syllable. So the syllable that's not stressed. So if we have weather, then we is the stressed one, weather. It's the most common sound in English, can be spelled with any vowel, and that is the phonetic symbol, an upside down, or a lazy E, because it's such a lazy sound. So, starting off, basic schwa material. Words beginning in A often start with the schwa sound, so the sound. About, around, avoid, approach, appreciate, okay? So this is the problem with English, isn't it? You can see a word and it could be an or it could be an right? So it's very difficult. Most words, or a lot of the words that start with A start with the schwa sound, about, around, avoid, approach, appreciate. Okay. So this is the schwa. These symbols, the dot means, so the little point means it's the stressed vowel, the stressed syllable, sorry. So we have develop, 3 syllables, develop. The V is stressed, okay? So that means if it's the stressed one, it won't be a schwa sound. So the other one, develop, develop. So can you, if we were reading it how it's spelt, it would be develop. But it's not, because it's a schwa sound, develop. Can you hear the in there? So it's not the stressed syllable, it's the other one, develop. Okay? Bulletin. So the b is stressed, bulletin, bulletin. So there's actually a schwa over the in as well. So if a Spanish speaker were to pronounce this, possibly they'd say boletín. But that's not correct. Bulletin, bulletin. We have the bulletin. English is a very lazy language, let's be honest. Experiment. So the stressed one is pronounced like we would expect the E to be pronounced, experiment. But we have also the schwa here. So it's not experiment, it's experiment, experiment. About. So the a is not stressed, about is stressed. These as well. We've heard them all, I'm sure. Going to, want to, should have. Obviously, if we see them there alone, we'd say going to. But in a sentence, oh, I'm going to the shops. Yeah, so we wouldn't say to. We'd say, I'm going to the shops. To, that's the schwa. I want to eat some sushi. I want to have a pizza. Yeah. And then should have in speech, we would say, oh man, I should have done my homework. Oh, I should have bought that dress. I should have. Okay, same thing. Here's a list of words with schwa. So I will read them out. Just have a listen and see if you can really hear. So that the underlined one is the schwa. Pleasant, again, balloon, problem, celebrate, enemy, duplicate, president, family, parrot, bottom, freedom, support, circumstance, album, syringe, analysis, Pennsylvania. Yeah, so those are very interesting displays of the schwa, right? Because if you were reading them as your brain would think you should read them, you'd pronounce things differently. Like enemy, for example, really should be enemy, but it's not, it's enemy. Celebrate, again. So when we look at sentences as a whole as well, that also have words that are stressed and unstressed. Okay, so we need to look at the sentence as a whole. So again, the dot is where the stresses are, and the upside down E is the schwa, so have a listen. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. So doctor, away, the doctor, a day, an apple. Okay, so they're all in there. Okay, this is my last section, so I just have 10 tips for sounding more natural. First one, don't drop off the last consonant of words. So in Spanish, there are never two consonant sounds together. So when they appear in English, Spanish speakers will often leave them out because it's more difficult, and I totally understand. So a key one, difficult. So if we don't pronounce these last consonants, it actually is super important. I've seen with my Latin American friends that live here in New Zealand, sometimes they'll say words and people won't understand them, and it's just because they've lost one letter, just one little letter off the end. So we need to make sure we're always saying those last consonants. Difficult, shark, shark, hand, night, insect. Okay, so although we have the connected speech, we need to know what things we connect and which ones we don't. These ones, non-negotiable, we always pronounce consonants at the ends of words. They're super important. Second one, use have got for possession. So this will help you sound more native. Rather than saying, do you have a pen or have you a pen? Try saying, have you got a pen? It's not that do you have a pen or have you a pen are wrong. They're fine. But have you got a pen is a lot more native. It's what native speakers would say. Have you got any money? I haven't got any money. Number 3, use may and might for probability. Yeah, so I think it's very common for Spanish speakers to say, es posible, blah, 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 and then translate it directly into English, but we wouldn't do that. So we wouldn't say, oh, it's what are you going to do on the weekend? Oh, it's possible I'll go to the cinema. Okay. We wouldn't really say that. We'd say, oh, I may go to the cinema or I might go to the cinema. They're more common ways to say things that are probably going to happen. Use alternative words for much, many, and a lot of. Okay, so saying, oh, I have many things to do. Yeah, it's not incorrect. It just doesn't sound very natural. I have loads of things to do. I have way too much stuff to do. I have heaps of things to do. Okay, so these examples are good alternatives to much and many. So loads of, oh, I ate loads of candy yesterday. Or I ate way too much pizza last night. I have heaps of friends. Heaps is a very New Zealand thing, just by the way, if you want to use it. A great deal of. So I have a great deal of pizza. I'm obviously only thinking about pizza. I have a great deal of pizza at my house. Or I have a bunch of old shoes. I have a large amount of old shoes. We like to use understatements. English speakers love using understatements, so to make everything seem a lot more casual than it needs to be. So instead of using very, like, oh, it's very hot, you could say, oh, it's rather hot, or it's pretty hot, or it's fairly hot, or if you're at a restaurant, how's the food? Oh, not bad. It's a very strange thing to say, but we always say it. Or, hey, how are you? Oh, not bad. Oh, I'm quite good. Oh, I'm quite tired. Oh, I'm pretty good. Oh, I'm rather angry. Yeah, so these are alternative ways to say very. Alternatives to say thank you. Of course, we say thank you sometimes, but if it's something quite casual, like someone did something for you, but not something like amazing, you might just say, oh, cheers. Cheers. And yes, it's the same one that we say when we do a brindis. Cheers. But we can also use it for thank you. If someone opens a door for you, cheers. Thanks, of course. Or ta. Ta is very British, but you might want to use it. Change the meaning of a word through phrase level stress. Okay, so this one, I'm pretty sure you do it in Spanish as well. So yeah, you can change the meaning of a sentence depending on which word you stress. So for example, it's not my job. Oh, it's not my job. You're literally just saying something isn't your job. It's not my job. Yeah, so that's showing maybe you're angry about something, I don't know. It's not my job. So that is implying that something is someone else's job. I didn't say that, but I did say something else. Or I didn't say that, but maybe someone else did. Yeah, so we can stress different words to change the meaning of the sentence. Number 8, tag questions. So these are questions with leading statements at the start. So it's like saying blah, 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 cierto. It's that kind of thing. So this isn't very nice, is it? So saying a negative thing and then confirming or asking for confirmation with, is it? So expecting the person to agree because you've already said the statement, yeah? So, this isn't very beautiful, is it? This isn't very fun, is it? Or the other way, this is delicious, isn't it? This is awesome, isn't it? Number 9, cut off some words. So this is especially used in text messaging, but also sometimes in spoken English. Loved seeing you yesterday. So you just cut off the I. Correct would be, I loved seeing you yesterday, but we can cut it off and say, loved seeing you yesterday. Want to hang out on Saturday, rather than saying, do you want to hang out on Saturday? Hey, want to hang out on Saturday? Awesome haircut, rather than, you have an awesome haircut, and good talking to you, rather than, it was good talking to you. Number 10, phrasal verbs. You've probably already studied them. It's a phrase that's made up of a verb and another word or two. So usually a preposition, but sometimes an adverb. They change the verb's meaning based on the preposition that follows them. So these ones, if you can figure out phrasal verbs, then you're doing very well, because they're weird and they're difficult to learn, because you learn the verb and then you're like, what? It means something else if I put this word in it. Yeah, we just need to practice them and learn them. So bring up, for example, yesterday I brought up this topic and no one wanted to talk about. So like mention, come up with something. I came up with a great idea yesterday. So come up. I wanted to talk about my party, but it never came up. So the topic never arose. Come in, of course. Come in. Let's come into a room. Come across. So something didn't appear. So yesterday you were talking to me very rudely and it came across like you were really angry. Pop in or pop over. So this is just like quickly going in somewhere. I'm just going to pop into the shop, or I'm going to pop over to my friend's house. So it's like a quick visit somewhere. Pick up, of course, we're going to pick up some groceries from the shop. Drop in is the same as pop in. So I'm just going to drop in and get my present. Drop off, so you're dropping someone off. I am dropping my children off at school. Get on with someone. Me and Emily get on very well. We're great friends. Go out, of course. So I'm going out with my friends. Grow up, yeah. So children grow up very fast. Turn up, so it's when you arrive. So, I turned up at work at 8 this morning. I arrived at work at 8 this morning. Show up is the same thing. And then work something out. So me and Emily worked our problem out. Yeah, we figured it out. We solved it. So those are my tips for sounding like a native speaker. Again, like I said, the main thing is practicing, and these things will start coming more naturally to you the more you practice and the more you just become comfortable with using English. And yeah, that's my presentation, and I wish everyone the best of luck with their English learning journey. So thank you.
Anna, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. We have in our curriculum, we also have phrasal verbs, tag questions, contractions, but sometimes we need someone else that explain us a little bit more about it. You know, like someone that can explain us, okay, sometimes we got the language in a way from our teachers, but we also need someone that explain us the point of view of those topics like phrasal verbs, tag questions, and we know that they are important. And sometimes, like you use them when you're talking, but normally the people who is like a native speaker, that person don't realize that the name of those topics, right?
Yeah.
So they don't know how to say, okay, and how can I form phrasal verbs? And they are, wait, what is phrasal verbs? But they are using it. Okay, they are Americans, and but that's nice because you have this knowledge. You know how to use them. You know how to explain them, and you are also like teaching Spanish, so you know like a little bit what will be like the meaning in Spanish, kind of, right? So thank you so much. We are going to see the questions that the students have today. So I'm going to pose the questions to you. Let's see what questions they have for today.
Cool.
Okay, one of the questions is, there is a difference between the New Zealand English and the North American English in terms of writing?
Yes. So just little things. Things like where Americans would use a Z for words, we would use an S. So for example, organization, we write with an S, and Americans write it with a Z. Or realize, we write it with an S, Americans with a Z. I can't think of any other examples, but often, yeah, when they have an S, when they have a Z, we have an S. Another one is with OR words like honor, labor, we put a U in them. So Americans would write HONOR and we write HONOUR. Or for labor, LABOUR. Color, COLOUR. Those are the main things.
Okay, interesting, nice. Okay, another question is, what do you suggest to us if, for example, I have a really good knowledge about grammar, like I know the grammar, but my pronunciation is not that well? What can you like suggest to them?
I mean, if you have the grammar, then you're already a very good amount of the way there. And the pronunciation, honestly, you just need to keep practicing. If you have any native speakers in your life, I know that's not necessarily, I don't know if that's likely or not, but if you do, be super annoying and talk to them all the time. If not, like I said, listening to lots of native English will help you a lot. Yeah. So of course you might have English speakers in your lives who aren't native speakers, and I'm sure they have amazing English. But it's important also to try and watch, Netflix shows in English, podcasts in English, and really focus on trying to understand it, because the more exposure, the more likely you are to take it in. But yeah, with pronunciation, honestly, the main thing is practice. Lots and lots of practice. Unfortunately, there's no magic solution.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Okay, very good. So I think we already answered one of the other questions that sets up what will be the best technique for having a good pronunciation. And I think like you already said, podcasts, news, television, music, all of those will be strategies.
And real sources, not listening to things that were created for English classes. I think often we hear audios that are made for like, these are for level B2 English speakers, and it's not natural. It's kind of slowed down, or it's about topics that are only specific. So if you can listen to as many realistic sources, so like the news and stuff like that, as possible, rather than just things that are made for English learners.
Okay, and another important question, and I love this one. Look, in Guatemala, our university, I don't know if I told you before, our university is in far ways, like is having the superior education to these villages that they don't have the opportunity to go to the main city, right? So someone asked, what about if I need to practice English, my pronunciation, but I don't have access to internet all time, right? Like I can have like this opportunity to have this data, like we say here, datos, redes. So I can be like charging my cell phone and having this opportunity to have like this connection, this full connection, like all time, all days. So, but I want to practice my pronunciation. Is there something that you can't like tell them that they can do? Like any like an exercise, maybe they can record their voices, I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, definitely. Recording your voice is a great idea, because I think as you're speaking, you're just thinking about what you want to say rather than how you're sounding saying it. So definitely recording your voice and then listening to it again with kind of different ears to be like, okay, that didn't quite sound right. And maybe noting down some of the things that you think don't quite sound right, and practicing them. And maybe hopefully you wrote some notes about my webinar and thinking about, okay, so you could record yourself speaking, maybe find a text in English and speak it, and then play it and do lots of pausing and be like, okay, that sentence, were there two consonants between a word that I probably should have connected differently? You know, like how could I better pronounce these sentences, and write some notes about the things that you've recorded.
Yeah, you know what? Like when I was starting, I had a teacher. She told us a really good activity, and the name is shadowing. So you're going to download it could be a song, it could be a movie. I don't know if you can, and you're going to like write down all the text that you hear, and then you're going to do like the shadow for that voices, right? Like you're going to be like the back voice of that voice. So you're going to do the shadow, and the name of the activity is shadowing. So you have to do it as many times as you need until you sound like this, like the track or like the movie or like the song. So maybe you can take, I don't know, 50 times, 100 times to do it almost perfectly. So that is a very good exercise, and it's called shadow or shadowing. You can also like Google it. You can Google it, shadowing technique or strategy or exercise, and they're going to show you like a lot of kind of tracks or audio tracks. How can you do the shadowing of any song? So you're going to practice. So you don't need internet like every day, but you're going to maybe like download just once, and then you're going to practice like the whole week just with one element, right?
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
Okay, here we have okay, do you think like New Zealand people, like the people from New Zealand, have difficulties to understand American people, or not at all?
No. And
I
think
or vice versa, like North American to understand New Zealand?
Sometimes. So I think everyone here could understand Americans very easily, because we have a lot of American media, lots of our TV shows, and we get all of the American movies and things like that. So we're very used to it, but they're not used to our accent. So some of them, and I've had that sometimes, I'll say something to usually an American who maybe hasn't traveled much, or maybe they just, I don't know, have problems hearing. But I have had a couple of people be like, sorry, what? Americans. Yeah. Or for example, sometimes people from like Northern England, or Ireland, sometimes I'll have trouble understanding them as well. So, crazy.
Okay, sorry, I had some technical problems with my internet,
It's okay.
but it's okay now. Okay, so no more questions. So far, we have answered all the questions.
Cool.
If someone else has another question, so we have time for a last one. Okay, not more questions. Any message that you want to say to the students before we go, Anna?
Just keep practicing and feel encouraged and positive about how far you have come. It's not an easy language, and I think anyone who even has a basic English is doing an amazing job, because it's hard, but it's worth it, because it is a very useful language that will take you very far. So good on you, and feel encouraged. And I wish everyone all the best with their English studies.
Very good. Someone is asking, how long did you take to learn Spanish the way that you are?
I mean, I studied Spanish at high school and at university, but I think when I went to Colombia, when I first got there, it was really difficult for me to understand everything. And it took me maybe a year and a half in Colombia to feel really comfortable. So when I first got there, like, it took me a long time. When I was like in groups of people and big groups of people, it was really hard for me to follow the conversation. Especially if there was lots of noise around, like if you're in a restaurant or something and there's music and there's other people, that was really hard for me. And also following like jokes and things like that. Probably after about a year and a half was when those things started coming as well. So it's a big
Jokes
process.
are difficult. Jokes are
They
difficult
are.
in any
They are, because
country. Like in Colombia,
there's
they're so difficult to understand.
Yeah, and there's so much cultural context as well. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Ana, thank you so much. Para todos nuestros estudiantes que estuvieron el día de hoy, hemos culminado este webinar con esta conferencia tan enriquecedora, tan importante para el aprendizaje, para el proceso de aprendizaje de un segundo idioma, que en este caso es el inglés. Muchas gracias por tomar el tiempo de estar cada día de esta semana conectados y haber estado allí visualizando todas las conferencias. Esperamos que hayan tomado notas, que hayan tomado nota también de todos los Google Sites que nos recomendaron todos nuestros conferencistas. Agradecerles a ellos inmensamente, la verdad, amablemente decidieron estar con nosotros en este proyecto voluntariamente, y les agradecemos inmensamente. Tuvimos el primer día al maestro John Alexander Serna, que estaba desde Colombia. Él sacó su espacio para hacer una maravillosa presentación. Tuvimos al maestro Héctor Palala desde Nebraska, Estados Unidos. Ayer contamos con la presencia de Mr. Kenneth Garnett, americano que es residente en Guatemala, y el día de hoy con Anna Kempkers desde Nueva Zelanda. Entonces tuvimos invitados muy importantes, muy especiales, internacionales. Esperamos que ustedes nos den comentarios en el formulario que van a llenar de asistencia y esperamos crear nuevos eventos para ustedes, para apoyarlos en su proceso, no solamente en las clases de inglés en línea que estamos teniendo en la Universidad Rural, sino que se vienen nuevos proyectos, se vienen nuevas cosas, nuevos webinars, inviten a sus amigos, lastimosamente, pues teníamos en este webinar un formulario que tenían que llenar, hicimos un filtro, ya que nuestros invitados iban a hablar completamente en inglés, entonces algunas personas que eran muy beginners no pudieron pasar el filtro, pero vamos a crear nuevos webinars que aplique para todos, que aplique también para beginners, advanced, so no se preocupen, vamos a tener nuevos webinars y bueno, ahí vamos a compartirles entonces el link del formulario que van a llenar esta noche. Vamos a hacer también toda la lectura de que sí hayan estado conectados en los otros días, en un promedio de 10 a 12 días les estará llegando su diploma virtual a su correo. Chicos, mucho cuidado, muchas personas, no solamente una ni dos, muchas personas han escrito mal su correo. Cuando hacemos la escritura del correo en el Gmail, nos rechaza el correo porque no está bien escrito. Por favor, tengan mucho cuidado con eso, ya que si el correo no está bien escrito, nunca les va a llegar el diploma, nunca les va a llegar la información. Entonces, estén muy pendientes de que escriban muy bien el correo. Escriban su número de carnet, escriban su nombre bien escrito, completo. Algunas personas solo lo escriben así y no sabemos quién es, no le podemos elaborar su constancia. Esa es la información que tenemos. Adjuntaremos todas las diapositivas al Google Drive. También estos videos van a estar habilitados, bueno, una vez que ya terminemos, hayan llenado el formulario de asistencia y tendrán la información ahí habilitada. Yo creo que no la vamos a retirar, por lo menos hasta que hagamos un nuevo webinar. Ahí van a tener ustedes toda la información. Y bueno, esperamos sus comentarios en el correo también si tienen sugerencias, si tienen cosas que decir que podamos mejorar en los próximos proyectos, en el programa de inglés, en todo, bienvenidos sean. Ustedes son el objeto de las clases del programa de inglés, y no solo del programa de inglés, sino de la Universidad Rural. O sea, la universidad existe por ustedes, entonces estamos abiertos a escuchar todos los comentarios que ustedes tengan y bueno, mejorar tanto como sea posible. Ana, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
for having
And
me.
thank you so much for being here. I think like they go so happy like for listening you, like listening you accent. So we hope we can join another meeting or doing another kind of event like this soon. Okay?
Yeah, totally. Let me know.
Thank you so
Happy to
much.
help.
It was a pleasure.
Cool.
And
Yeah,
nice to meet
same.
you.
Yeah,
Okay.
you too.
Bueno,
Okay.
les dejamos
Take.
entonces el formulario para que hagan su asistencia el día de hoy. Y bueno, muchísimas gracias. Muy, muy agradecidos por su participación, su asistencia, su interés y su motivación. Muchas gracias a todos y nos vemos en una